Week 1 of Phase 2 continues today. And today, one team will set themselves up very well in Phase 2 here at the HGC in North America with 2 victories. I'm Gillyweed here with Dreadnought. Dread, we also get to see 2 more new and improved teams today. The first time we're going to get to see Naventic and Gale Force Esports.
I'm excited, especially Gale Force Esports. There's a lot of hype behind this roster, but again, this is not the first time that Gale Force has come out and have a new roster where everybody's like, this is it. This is the one. So today, I want to see this version actually meet the hype.
Yeah, I am very excited to see the reuniting of Fan as well as King Caffeine and K1 Pro all back together. Let's check in with the North American standings to see the 2 victories and unfortunately the 2 losses, the first 2 of all of these teams so far. We still have yet to see Gale Force, Roll20, Naventic, and Tempo Storm play. We'll see 2 of those today. We're also going to have No Tomorrow versus Team Freedom, so the first team to get 2 victories in the standings. And we even saw Even in Death, their first performance in HGC. What do you think of that, Dread?
It was better than I expected. I mean, obviously with not even getting a win in that series against a team like Team Freedom, which we expect to fall more in that like 6-7 kind of slot. It was better than I expected, but it also obviously there's a lot of room for improvement for the team. It's just how much can they grow over these weeks now that they have a stable platform. A lot of the teams now are going to be open to scrimming them, that they're a part of the HGC. So I'm just more looking for the future for that squad, but it was a nice start, better than I expected.
Well, speaking of the future, let's check in with today's schedule so you at home know what to expect, what to get excited about. If you missed it in HGC Europe, Playing Ducks got a reverse sweep over Tricked Esport. That was a fantastic series if you missed it. And also, Team Liquid got a 3-0 victory, very dominant fashion over Team Good Guys. We're going to close things out today with a highly anticipated match, Gale Force Esports versus Team Naventic, but we start with the victors of yesterday, No Tomorrow and Team Freedom. Yeah,
No Tomorrow and Team Freedom both coming off the win, so they've got to feel a little bit better about themselves, but we get to figure out who is the better team of the 2. And you and I were talking about this before broadcast here today. It's just, it's hard to tell. This is going to be a pretty evenly matched team, and I'm excited for it. We saw positives out of both teams. Now it's just who's better.
Yeah, I feel like it could go either way. It's 50-50, it feels to me, about this. We have the Equinox factor on one side now for No Tomorrow. The role swap, having Casanova go over to Warrior, looked pretty good for No Tomorrow. Yeah, better than I thought it would. Casanova trying to figure out his spot, because Warriors are really hard to learn. I try to explain learning a support and learning the Warrior role. They fill a different objective in every single game, in every single comp than what Range Assassin is. Range Assassin is going to be as high impact as you possibly can, kill the things, win the video game. So it's really interesting to see his transition over to the Warrior, and so far, it's been better than I expected too. It's just everything is a positive adjustment for these teams. Especially knowing that Casanova's heart really is in the melee assassin role. He was like, I'm not going to give my role up to just anybody, but it's Equinox. It's hard to say no to that. Well, let's get into this first matchup, No Tomorrow versus Team Freedom.
Well, I think No Tomorrow is a good team overall. I think a couple of their players pretty new, like Casanova, and Trees is still, I think, kind of overrated. I think he's a good player, obviously, but he still needs to work and play more game and stuff. It should be a good matchup, but I think we should be able to beat them.
Early question in this matchup, it's mostly a question of tanks making room for the other teammates. That's mostly it. I think we have, normally we do perform well against No Tomorrow, so I have no fear that we're gonna win against them.
Oh, you mean Team Free? Yeah, they're super free. Yeah, I'm excited to play them every week. I'll take that. I'll take those free dogs.
Team Free is the reason that No Tomorrow ended up in the Crucible.
Bang, bang! Ha-ha! Got him, Casanova! Fighting words here. You know, you can dish them out left and right, but at the end of the day, it's always about the results. No, those interviews were from the summit before, so a little bit of late words from Casanova spin out the game. But it is funny now getting to know that, in fact, it's maybe not as free as they made it out to be at first.
Words from the grave.
Yeah, love it.
Let's get ready for the match, starting with the Battleground pool for the Heroes Global Championship. No Tomorrow have chosen Cursed Hollow for game number 1. It was a Battleground they chose yesterday as well. Bans on Braxis Holdout and Sky Temple.
Man, Cursed Hollow for game 1. I believe we saw No Tomorrow even choose this map yesterday.
Yep.
So it's already going to be shown a priority coming out from No Tomorrow in phase number 2 on to Cursed Hollow. But it doesn't sit. There is no major outlier here. It's going to be just who has the better rotation, who can play the macro game a little bit better than the other.
By the way, the stage setup for Cursed Hollow is my favorite. It has nothing to do with it matching my hair. Nothing. No bias at all.
That is actually a little, that's a little unfair. I'm dyeing my hair now. I'm going to go for, what's my favorite map? No, I'm not. I shouldn't have said that. You know, sometimes I forget that everything I say with this mic on is in fact recorded.
It is law.
And there are
There's no going back now.
It is.
I'm going to need everyone to tweet using the hashtag HGC and let us know which battleground Dredge should in fact dye his hair to match.
There's no, man, my goodness. Is there any pink map? There is none. You know, if I was gonna go for, I want something flashy. You can't just give me the basic, just, you know, simple green or a blue. It's got to be something very outlandish.
I like that green is simple.
It'd
be pretty nuts.
Either way here, looking at the draft, Gilly, beyond the hair strategies here, Genji removal, not surprised, but it's on Freedom. We watched Freedom just absolutely pop off on any reset hero, specifically in the hands of Cure. Just was an amazing performance. So
yeah,
I'm surprised to see that taken away from them, but I also don't hate it because we know the power of Genji as a hero. I just want to see the reasoning, and they're at least in their one slot here in the first pick.
Yeah, it makes me think that Team Freedom just don't want to first pick it. They instead want a global, very fast pick of Dahaka. But if they weren't going to first pick it, they knew that it was very likely that No Tomorrow got Genji. I think that it is possible that we see Genji banned throughout the series. Between Talking Trees and Cure, there was a lot of Genji play between these two teams.
Yeah, there was, and now I expect this to be a Malfurion and Nubarak rotation from No Tomorrow. A Nubarak with already one warrior taken away. He stands kind of at the top. Also, the fact that Malfurion, because of the Uther ban specifically on the side of No Tomorrow, was a common rotation, but we saw it the MSB, but now the bans only make it even that much more, you know, ban picks so far has only made it seem that much more apparent. Any mix-up to that would be an Abathur. So
yes,
it would be an Abathur Anub or an Abathur Malf. I personally would go Abathur and Nubarak if we see that. So they go with the Malf and Noob, which hands over an Abathur option for Freedom. One thing to note, not every team at the MSB felt comfortable going into a double global. The Dahaka and the Abathur. Few teams like Team Dignitas were. I love it. I would love to see that from them, but it's not as go-to is what I'm trying to get across here. Even teams at MSB were questioning it.
Ooh, Tracer Tassadar. Willing to draft this before the second bans, but to make sure that they get it.
Yeah, you know, Tassadar Tracer, old school strategy, one that since the Tassadar buffs onto his level 4, now getting 90% lifesteal, has only gotten stronger. Well, debatable. It's technically got nerfed pretty hard in the second to Tassadar nerfs, then it got slightly rebuffed with any consistent auto attackers on the most recent Tassadar adjustment. So it's not as good as it once was, but it's still very good. Just off of her auto attack, she sustains so much more. Just the shielding window is a little bit smaller than it once was. It's not as just free as she's just always in your face with a shield.
Yeah, you can't buff the duration, but you still, with Tassadar now, it seems to be Templar as well anyway, trying to get the extra damage to supplement the fact that you have this double support and probably double warrior, actually, looking at what they have so far with Dahaka too. So a lot of enabling, but they are going to need to make sure that they have the kind of extra damage from the other picks that Team Freedom pick up.
Farther into the support pool is No Tomorrow going to push this. Uther, Rhaegar, and Malfurion all removed. Man, it's crazy. Just to give, like, I don't know how many people view the draft like this, but if you think about the influence No Tomorrow's had on this draft so far, they've had the ability to affect 4 heroes specifically, and already 3 of those have been committed to focusing onto the smart. So now you have to ask yourselves, is the resource of 3 different slots, it's 75% of their draft so far, worth what they've taken away for Team Freedom in the later parts? I personally don't feel like that's the case.
I think it just depends on how Collusion is able to perform on said hero. We haven't seen him play anything other than Rhaegar or Malfurion yet in Phase 2. So it just depends. If No Tomorrow knows that Collusion may not be as comfortable on something like a Karzim, that might be a possibility. And then in that case, if it's severe, then maybe it is worth it.
You know, the support choke, especially for Karzims in North America, I've gave a lot of criticism that we saw in Phase 1. It's going to be no different in Phase 2. So I think it's smart tactic, especially with the lack of Karazim players that we have, or at least the ones to be on par, to be, you know, an impactful pick. No tomorrow, though. They're thinking here. They've gone quite a bit into their hero or time pool into this next phase with the Abathur removal. Into a Tracer. You want consistent damage to make sure you can focus her down. Again, Tychus isn't terrible here, but it doesn't stand out as amazing. Greymane is still available. That was one thing that I expect for No Tomorrow here.
I think
Cassia Zarya.
there's a possibility that Team Freedom goes Brightwing instead of Karazim.
With the Tracer, it makes a bit more sense, but into a Cassia, Death Ball, hyper carry strategy that we see coming out from No Tomorrow now, you want more healing.
Yeah.
Like Polybombs are not enough there. Your self-sustain with Brightwing's Blink Heal is not enough there, and Emerald Wind is never going to get off. If it does, it will be impactful enough to be a justified pick. But if we see the Blink Heal route, outside of Polybombs through the Tracer, I don't really see that being a justifiable.
Yeah, the only reason why I say that is the amount of Brightwing versus the amount of Karazim played in Phase 1 from Team Freedom.
Yeah.
And it's cursed. They already have one global. They've still banned Abathur 2, so maybe they're trying to out-global their opponents, and then they have Tracer there, and whenever she shows up, then all of a sudden you can have Brightwing phase shift into. We'll see. Nope, Karazim and Varian still.
The Varian pickup there, a removal of Taunt. With No Tomorrow's rotation going into the Cassia Zarya, if they wanted somebody to get the lockdown there, they very much volunteered to go away from it and then move into the TLV.
Okay. So you have those strong
Feel the Heat Cassia
4-man, yeah.
into the Task Tracer pickoff composition. This is weird. This is actually really cool, the influence that the Lost Vikings puts onto this draft specifically, because Task Tracer, you know their goal into the laning phase is going to be concentrated on trying to get picks whenever they can on the isolated rotations. But if you pick Lost Vikings are always just there to soak and survive. Tracer doesn't change that at all. They're there to soak and survive. So it now brings Tracer to respond to the heavily sieging 4-man. She'll never be able to get a pick there because it's too predictable.
Yeah.
Not getting distance to safety, way too close. But the Vikings will be more susceptible. So this makes the Task Tracer decide one of two things. Tassadar should respond to the 4. Tracer goes off on her own, look for the picks and kind of play Zeratul-esque. But it doesn't make the team fighting any better on the side of No Tomorrow. You know, it's still a high-risk pick, but it is a unique dynamic on how it affects Task Tracer and how they have to approach the early game.
Yeah, I think because Team Freedom had to show the Task Tracer so early on, then No Tomorrow had a lot of time to figure out how they could deal with that, and having Cassia with Avoidance is going to be a welcome start to that. Before we get into game number 1, we have a tweet from you guys. You're already letting us know what you think about Dreadnought's hair. From Firo Pro Fire. Sorry if I butchered that one. Make it white so production can just change the light color to match the map. It's brilliant.
It is. It is actually just flawless logic here. White has to be the go-to strategy there. It's like essentially mirroring the circumstances around me to make sure that I am always prepared for whatever map we're going to be playing on.
We're always in the zone. I'm in the zone. I'm ready. I know you guys are ready for game number 1 between No Tomorrow and Freedom, so let's get to it for our first match of the day.
First match of the day going to be busted out here on Cursed Hollow, where No Tomorrow has Jason on the Lost Vikings, Casanova on a new Barak, Equinox playing the Zarya. We've got Talking Trees on the Cassia, and I forgot to talk about Tiger JK on the Malfurion.
And the members of Team Freedom Collusion playing Karazim, Varian played by Zugrug, Cure will be playing Dahaka, Danesky playing Tassadar, and finally playing Tracer is Nasmus.
So already we see Lost Vikings focusing on, you know, any kind of Merc pressure there with the level 1 Viking bribery. Feel the Heat is the choice for Zarya. Anytime you see a tri-lane where Zarya wants to get heavy sieging, she's going to take Feel the Heat. It's just way too good at pressuring out front walls because, for those who don't know, her auto attacks actually hit multiple targets, including front walls, which means when you see her auto attacking, the reason the side wall dies and the gate dies at the exact same time, all thanks to Zarya. Feel the Heat, 50% bonus damage. It's pretty crazy how fast she sieges.
It goes down so fast. Team Freedom knew that No Tomorrow would be looking to get that starting siege, and they are sieging themselves 2, it's just not going nearly as fast in the mid lane.
Yeah, so this is exactly what I was talking about. The unique dynamic that the Lost Vikings brings to this. Freedom, rather than responding, has gone with the approach of we're going to try and siege elsewhere and keep up with you. There's no world where that happens, which is why I didn't think Freedom would try and do that. Instead, you commit all the resources absolutely possible. Tracer sits in the lane and just tries to be a bully on top of the Vikings if they move up for any form of soak, and then you have the top lane Dahaka be the problem that you know he can be. It's essentially going, we're going to lose, but we're going to lose slower. Instead, Freedom goes, we're going to try and trade, and now they're realizing how insanely difficult that is to trade into the Zarya pressure.
Yeah, and Freedom do not want to get behind in experience versus No Tomorrow, because the Vikings are only going to exacerbate that issue once we start getting into the prolonged fights around tributes.
But look at Freedom is not going to change up the strat. They're going for a counter push elsewhere, because remember, their counter siege was up in mid. So again, they have decided that they want this front wall through bottom more than they think stopping the bleeding of what is this early game pressure coming out from No Tomorrow. I hate to break it to you, Gilly. We're going to see the same outcome. No Tomorrow is just going to obliterate this fort, and there's going to be very little that the bottom lane can do. It's only going to capture a top wall, especially if Tassadar goes down. 1Q, just far enough away. He will be able to survive, but 2 forts down already here for No Tomorrow.
Team Freedom doing what they can to siege. They got half of the mid fort, so if they're able to get some sort of win in a team fight, then weakening these structures will help a lot, and they do take down the Viking here in the bottom lane. So Freedom at least making the best of the circumstances as they know how.
No Tomorrow is not going to respond to this tribute because the tribute is going to gain them nothing. Again, they can get another fort for free. 3 forts during the first
without
tribute phase without needing anything whatsoever, just based on this early game pressure. And again, what Task Tracer committed to early in the draft, nice punishment from No Tomorrow. It's not a standard counter to this, but I love to see a team, when they see your opponents, I talk about it all the time, if you commit to the team fight too heavy, I'm just going to focus on macro. I don't know if Vikings is my first thought when I talk about the macro game, but it is an option, and No Tomorrow is doing a perfect job so far.
Flexibility of No Tomorrow to adapt to the composition of Team Freedom earlier on. Freedom are at least going to take down a fort, so they get 1, but there's the 3rd down.
So here's the window where we get to really see how much is No Tomorrow put into this. They're going to start with this boss, because now that all the forts are down, all the low-hanging fruit has been removed off the map. So now they have to go for bigger stuff. Is this boss actually going to give them anything? It's 3 minutes. No. That boss is actually wasting time for both these teams. Team Freedom would gain more by taking mid-fort than this boss. And so it's one of those circumstances where a 3-minute boss, because of the scaling, it hasn't even hit the first increment of the 6-minute mark. It's just going to walk into a lane and kind of die. I would rather see them just go, fine, we're going keep. The minute you start trying to match us on a fort, we're going to take your keep. And if you want to take keep for a fort, that is a free low trade up. I would take 100% of the time you give it to me.
Jason about to lose Olaf. Tribute spawning up in the top. Sort of a good positioning for Team Freedom. At least it's behind the rocky outcropping, and they're already moving into position to defend with the boss too.
I just want to take a minute to see how much value this top boss might be able to get, just because it's on its own. And only a Tacit are defending. I want to get this across so everybody at home realizes how useless bosses are. Like, there is a reason as why I call them one of the most overhyped things in the game. Until they hit 60 minutes, they got a gate. And sad little Tassadar, Lone Ranger up there. We're going to act like we didn't see that, Dansky.
We got you, Dansky. It never happened.
He's just...
Distortion Beam, the end of the boss. Both bosses dealt with, but Team Freedom has the ability to get a curse with their next tribute.
Mission accomplished on bottom. It was a slow defense coming out from No Tomorrow, so Freedom got way more out of that than I expected them to, but the keep wall, that's all it's going to take here. Now with the downtime, the true tribute advantage, No Tomorrow, what are they going to be doing? They essentially should accept their fate that they're going to lose the curse, unless they have 10 advantage and then it's zone off and hope for the team fight. But the reason why forfeiting is typically the safer route with Lost Vikings is because their team fight pre-10 is just useless. Post-10, it's still pretty bad. It's not up until like 16 mark is a actual fighting battle Vikings really a viable approach to like the map.
They have set up an excellent zoning though, and Team Freedom were dealing with the Vikings, so slow to rotate up. So even though Team Freedom maybe would have had an opportunity to try to get some picks. It's No Tomorrow who claims the tribute.
Yeah, it is. They're doing a great job. And I would like to see Freedom transition to Haka towards pressuring up bottom. That is where the keep will fall the fastest. And it makes the most sense for them to, you know, keep the global pressure up throughout that lane. But 10 has come in line here for No Tomorrow. When it comes to heroic choices, we're yet to see if it's play again or if that in fact is the longboat raid. It's going to be play again. Everybody else sticking with the standard lightning ball, ball lightning. What is the official name there, Gilly?
Ball lightning?
Ball lightning. Creative as ever. Ball lightning, in fact, is the choice for Cassia.
Dahaka comes in, taunt there. Tracer's trying to dive into the back. Equinox has that arcane barrier, or the barrier that does damage once he uses it.
It's going to be web wrap too. Nasmus actually missing the pulse bomb. Punched out is going to be it. There's drag. Burrow not even going to have the time. Casanova just gets ripped through on the 7-sided. Now Nasmus moves forward. Tribute up. This should be Freedom's curse.
There is always the possibility of that drag or taunt into 7-sided strike. Another taunt play again, so all the Vikings are coming in to try to stop Team Freedom from getting the curse right now. They do not have a Nubrak for another few seconds, but it is closer to No Tomorrow's side of the battleground.
The 4-man here of Team Freedom is powerful. Dahaka is yet to show himself to try and join back in. We have 17 seconds before 7-sided strike is here. 16 till the cocoon. Tiger JK gets the last interrupt. He's going to start the channel, and that's a tribute. No Tomorrow's going to get that for free. Not what I want from Freedom in this game. If you view Vikings, the best way to get this across, because they break the rules like Abathur does, but view it like an Abathur comp. Like, if you have the early game, you should do better with the soaking, but you should be pretty weak in skirmishing. Like, you just don't have kind of the team fight. You forfeit, you forfeit, you forfeit. You hit the 10 mark, and then that's when the Vikings, you know, the experience advantage, and then suddenly they're relevant in team fights too. That's why, so at this point in time, the fact that Vikings are winning those with you have a 1 through 9 Task Tracer composition, basic, you know, Heroes of the Storm math should add up to say that Task Tracer should be winning these skirmishes, that they should have at least gotten a curse.
Yeah, Team Freedom does seem to be playing the way that we know Team Freedom to play. Even their brush stocks have been very patient in the back instead of trying to go from the side. There's the Twilight Dream. It hits Dahaka. He is in danger. So is Zugrug, but does still have a parry. Malfurion goes down. That's the first kill that is desperately needed. Bodies going down like flies in this fight. Nasmus hoping to get the next kill along with Dansky taking out trees.
They're just
uses
grasping.
that avoidance for so long. He stayed alive for so long. Cassia and Tracer go down.
Casanova, the drag seals the deal. 5 for 3 here, No Tomorrow. Just one team fight lost. Tribute's going to go over to Team Freedom now. They have the opportunity to get a curse. Vikings are a really good anti-curse in terms of making sure that they always get soak, maintain that pressure out onto the map. And with 2 members dead, stalling out this tribute as long as possible is in the favor of Team Freedom. But they capture it as fast as possible. So what can they make happen? Minimum, mid fort, that goes down. Top fort should go down as well. It's just, do we see pressure on bottom keep or to the mid keep afterwards if they end up going that route? That's what I want to see here onto the curse.
Dahaka went immediately up to top so that he could push that lane back as fast as they can to take advantage with the curse and take out that final fort. But No Tomorrow don't feel under a lot of pressure here, the fact that they're willing to go over to their boss.
Gilly, I always talk about the one thing you never do during a curse. The boss, especially at the beginning of it. Okay, that's not true. When I say never, that's an absolute, that just doesn't exist in Heroes. But
right, there are certain times.
Very, very rarely, and this is definitely not one of those where it's going to benefit the team. The fact that No Tomorrow got that, why you start the boss at the end of the curse and not in the middle, beyond the fact you're wasting the time, is the experience. We always know experience builds up onto the side lanes. If you can force the boss and say you can't trade with us, you have to get the side soak experience that's building up because of this curse, then if they respond to it, you're like, double boss play. This is it. But what you did here was go boss for boss, gave all the experience up to your opponent, and now you are only arguing that your push is better because the fort doesn't exist there. I don't know if you looked at the other side of the map, the fort doesn't exist there either, so that is essentially just going, we don't want to siege with our curse.
But it means they just about have to siege with the boss and the
make
Giants
it
now.
matter.
Yes, they will be able to get 16 over their opponents, maybe can try to get some kills so that they do take out a keep. but all the keeps remain. And that bottom keep had taken damage prior to the Curse of Team Freedom. The next tribute picked up by No Tomorrow will give them a curse to alleviate all of the damage that they've done. So Team Freedom has to make this matter.
Equinox is in a bad spot. The taunt underneath the boss. He eats so much damage, and he is just going to go down. The first member. Can they get more? There's going to be the knock up. Oh, Casanova so very low. Talking trees. He goes down. They might be able to end the game. 2 picks is enough. They keep going. They want Tiger JK.
Yeah, they have 3 full picks, and it's only only the Vikings left. Tiger JK dies, but Plum can even go off, and that is it. Team Freedom did have to make that boss matter, and they did just that, getting the picks necessary to win Game 1 over No Tomorrow.
Another symptom of what we saw yesterday here from Team Freedom. Patient, patient, patient. So much so, maybe it's to a fault, but then they hit a moment where they go, we're just better at team fighting, and just flat out wipe, end the game immediately after. You could argue it's a good thing to see that at least it's stable. You know, you can look at the pros and the cons of the way that they're approaching it, but it is scary. You know, for not this series specifically, if they can keep this up, I think that they will be able to beat No Tomorrow. Because you saw the 2 team fights where it's actually concerted effort of we're going to fight, they just are better. But they need to make sure that the team doesn't punish them too hard in the early game. And if No Tomorrow figures that out, might be a different tale.
It is faster than the Team Freedom that we knew from playoffs specifically, but in Phase 1, where they were playing and they would not turn on that aggression until all the way to 20, which was a long time through the games, and did not work out for them at all once they went up against Roll20 in the playoffs. But at least it's faster, and when we talked to Zugrug yesterday, he said they knew they needed to be more aggressive. So they are making strides. You can see that they're trying to do that faster, but it is trying to get rid of old habits. They die hard.
Yeah, they very much do. And for now, it's not even getting punished, right? It's one of those things where we have very few teams in NA, actually, that would be able to punish that style of strategy. But just early on, you know, we haven't seen every team take on every team with the new version of North America that we've got in Phase 2. And it's just something I do have concerns for them if this continues.
Absolutely incredible early game, though, from No Tomorrow, too. How they set up with the Vikings, their 4-man push was really strong. The punishment of drafting, too, the adaptation there. Things looked really good for No Tomorrow. Where did things go wrong?
I mean, it just came down to the fact that the one fight up on the bottom they went blow for blow with the Vikings composition until they didn't hit, again, the 16 mark where Vikings actually can kind of team fight. But up until that point, so they took a fight where they don't necessarily want to end up getting the fight, and then they fell so far behind, they go blow for blow, and then they take the only fight where they can actually lose the game right there, is if you wipe 2 to 3 members, and they wiped all 5, right? So if they play that safer, they hit a mark where they could get a curse, they have the Vikings to split up the pressure, and suddenly that game blows all the momentum into the favor of No Tomorrow. They just never hit the window.
Yeah, it really just came down to that boss, the push with it too, and if they had not given picks to Team Freedom, it could have been a completely different game, too, because it was getting closer and closer to No Tomorrow being able to hit that spike, especially not losing any keeps throughout the entire curse of Team Freedom. So, like we said, guys, this could be a close one.